All right, let's dive in. We're about to unpack one of the oldest and, frankly, most effective tricks in the book for justifying power. And you might be really surprised to see who's using that same trick today.
I know, it sounds like the setup to a pretty weird joke, right? But the answer, well, the answer reveals something absolutely fundamental about how power has always worked.
See, it all comes down to a story. It's this powerful narrative that's been carefully crafted to convince all of us that their authority isn't just legitimate, it's natural, it's inevitable, and, ultimately, it's all for our own good.
Okay, so to really get this playbook, we've got to rewind, like way back to the 17th century, and take a look at its first and probably its most famous chapter.
And just to be clear, this wasn't some kind of metaphor, no way. In 1609, King James I actually stood up in front of Parliament and said this with a totally straight face. It was a brilliant move, really. He was strategically lifting his political power up into this metaphysical realm, a place where you just couldn't question it.
And that right there, that's the core of the whole magic trick. The argument was incredibly simple and just absolute. The king was chosen by God. Period. His power came directly from heaven. So, the really crucial part is how this logic actually worked. It basically short-circuited any possible debate. I mean, think about it. If the king's power is sacred, and he only has to answer to God, then how could you possibly challenge him? It's not a political disagreement anymore, is it? It becomes a spiritual crime. Blasphemy.
All right, now let's jump forward a couple of centuries. The playbook gets dusted off, but the fundamental logic, it's exactly the same, just adapted for a new time and a new place. 19th century America.
So this is where a journalist named John L. O'Sullivan comes up with this incredibly powerful new phrase. The divine mandate wasn't for just one king anymore. Oh no. Now it was for an entire nation. It was, as he put it, a special mission handed down by Providence.
And that was the whole point of this new story. Its function was to take these brutal, violent acts, we're talking about the Mexican-American War, the forced removal of Native Americans, and paint them as something righteous, as necessary steps in some kind of holy mission. It literally turned conquest into destiny. But of course, behind that grand story was a staggering, heartbreaking human cost. Just look at this number, 4,000. That's 4,000 men, women, and children from just the Cherokee Nation who died during their forced relocation on the Trail of Tears. So that grand story of destiny, it was a cover for immense, unimaginable suffering. And all of that, it brings us right here to today. The magic words, they've definitely changed, but the playbook, as we're about to see, it is exactly the same.
And here it is. This is the modern playbook in its simplest form. The role of the king? Well, that's now played by the founder. God's will has been swapped out for inevitable progress. And if you dare to question this new order, oh, you're not a heretic anymore. Now you're a Luddite, an enemy of the future itself.
You know, this idea isn't even new to Silicon Valley. Not at all. Over a century ago, the famous industrialist Andrew Carnegie was using the exact same logic. He basically argued that massive inequality was just a natural byproduct of progress, and criticizing it, totally pointless.
This is pretty much the modern theology. It's this core belief that technology is some kind of autonomous, unstoppable force that's just shaping our society on its own. And what that does is it suggests that its creators aren't really responsible for the consequences, right? They're just the midwives, delivering a future that was always going to happen anyway.
But, you guessed it, just like with Manifest Destiny, this grand narrative of progress is hiding a very, very real and steep price. So we've all been told this story that the technological revolution would benefit everyone, right? Lift all boats. But instead, what have we seen? Extreme concentration of wealth. In the US, the share of wealth held by the top 1% has climbed all the way to 37%, and a huge chunk of that was generated by this new economy. And what about the cloud? We think of it as this immaterial, weightless thing, but it has a massive physical footprint. Get this, a single large data center can slurp up as much water in a day as a town of 50,000 people. That puts a huge, huge strain on our environment. And maybe the most intimate cost of all is the psychological one. I mean, the US Surgeon General has put out a warning that teenagers who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media face double the risk of depression. And let's be clear, this isn't just some unfortunate side effect. It's a future of a business model that is literally built on capturing and holding our attention.
When you look at the full environmental ledger, it's just staggering. I mean, think about this for a second. Data centers now contribute as much to global greenhouse gas emissions as the entire airline industry. The entire airline industry. And it gets crazier. Training just one large AI model can have a bigger carbon footprint than 5 cars over their entire lifetimes. It's mind-blowing.
Okay, so this brings us to the final and honestly, the most shocking part of this whole story.
For years now, critics have called Silicon Valley's obsession with AI a religion. And, this was always seen as just a metaphor, a figure of speech.
Until, well, it wasn't.
And I'm not exaggerating here. This is real. In 2015, one of the high priests of the tech world, a star engineer, filed official IRS paperwork to create an actual church, and its stated purpose? To develop and worship an AI god. The metaphor literally became reality.
So ultimately, when the powerful wrap themselves up in this cloak of inevitable progress, what they're really trying to do is place themselves beyond any debate. And that leaves us with a really fundamental question, doesn't it? In this new religion of progress, who gets to write the commandments?